Hey guys, hope you're having a great day. Today we're here to talk about relationship building, also known as networking. And relationship building is perhaps the most reviled step in the career change process. I think because so many people have limiting beliefs around it and have assumptions about how they think they need to network. And so it just really becomes this transactional, uncomfortable thing. I know for me, I'm an introvert. I need to be really careful about how I spend my energy with people because I tend to go deep with people. I don't like small talk. And so the very word networking, even now, conjures this image of this kind of soulless conference room where people are milling about and handing out their business cards and making small talk over a cheese plate or something, which is not fun. I guess if you're drawn to that, then go for it. But to me and a lot of people I work with, that's not fun because it feels transactional. It feels like an obligation. You are, clearly using people or feeling like, you're just trying to get something from them. And no one likes how that feels on either side of it. So I like to think about it in terms of relationship building. And it is so freeing to me because that idea is, number one, long-term focused, right? You're really thinking not how does this person help me get the thing that I want, but how does this person fit into my goals, short, medium, long-term, personally and professionally, right? So as you meet people, maybe they lead you to a job. Maybe they become, a trusted advisor outside of work. Maybe they become a mentor. Maybe it's someone that you mentor. So there's all sorts of options. And I think, it's just like any other way that we meet people. We're doing these things naturally. And then something flips when we get into networking mode and we change it all up. So I like to think of it as relationship building. And rather than asking strangers for favors, really get to know the person on the other side. Show up, show yourself, see what they show you, and then really evaluate, do I want to talk to this person again? Is this someone I want to talk to on a regular basis? And if so, how do I want them to fit in to my personal and professional goals? So that's the topic we're talking about. I want to share with you a real life example of a current client who is crushing it in this space, and he's only just started. So I want to show you all the things that I bang on about. They're actually proven out in this real life example. So the first thing he did really well is understood the first rule, which is you are not asking for a job. And I think there is so much discomfort around this because people know this, but yet because they don't know how to come to these conversations, they kind of come up with all these wonky constructions of like asking for a job but not asking for a job. And it's awkward for the person who doesn't know you to like try to find you a job, especially if they're not hiring. And again, it puts a transactional nature on this rather than let's have a conversation, right? Let me find out more about the organization and more about how you lead, and even find out if I want to work for you. So that's the first thing that he did really well, is he shifted and knew that he was going into his first discussion with a set of questions to find out what was important to this guy. He was first drawn to him because this person he was talking to actually made a really interesting change. And so he was intrigued. And so he went in with a set of questions to evaluate that, not asking for a job. The other thing he did really well within that was dropped breadcrumbs, as he's asking these questions, dropped these breadcrumbs about what was important to him and what he was good at and, what he did really well. So I think that was particularly brilliant. The second thing he did was he led the meeting with authenticity and enthusiasm. And I think this point could be alternatively called don't take career advice from your parents or family members or even friends, which is probably a whole separate video rant because I could tell you stories about really bad career advice given with the best of intentions, right? It comes from a place of love, but just terrible advice. And so in this case, my client's parent had said, you need to go in there and you need to sell them on this idea and you need to like make them buy from you, just kind of like this, take on this brash persona that number one, my client didn't feel comfortable with, because that's not him. So it took him out of authenticity if he were to do that. And the second thing is he's making a career change. So imagine the pressure that puts on yourself to, be new to a sector or industry or role, and then have to feel like in the very first conversation, you're talking like an expert, right? It's not going to happen. I have no doubt that down the line, if that's the path you choose, you will absolutely have great ideas that change the way they do things for the better. But you don't have to do that in the first meeting. And I guess the last point about that is it also shifts the energy and focus to look at how great I am, right? You're tap dancing on the stage and getting them to like you, as opposed to finding out if you like them and interviewing them. And like I said, you can still leave those breadcrumbs. It's not all about them. You want to be showing them and who you are as well. But you're not interviewing. You're not asking them for a job. So the other thing he did in this space with the leading with authenticity is that he had a clear structure for the meeting. And so he actually led through the meeting. Sometimes these meetings can be a little bit amorphous, right? Because you reach out or maybe you get connected to someone and then you're sitting there in the meeting, like who talks, like what are we here to do? And so for you to step into that space with confidence and lay out, I don't want to say an agenda, but just say, hey, here's what I'm looking for. Here's a little bit about me. This is what I'd like to cover today, and this is what I'd like to walk away with. And I go into this in way more depth with my clients, but the point is to have an agenda and to lead through the meeting. You're actually modeling for them and showing them what you're capable of, right? And so especially when you're going in for not even necessarily senior leadership roles, but any sort of leader role, right? You want to be modeling that behavior. You want to be showing them what you'll do when and if you come on later. And I think the other thing it does is just put the person that you're talking to at ease. You've set up this meeting, right? You've asked for it. And so don't make them work. They're being gracious and generous with their time. So throw them a bone, give them a hand, and lead them through it. The third thing he did was he positioned himself through these things I mentioned, through leading the meeting and not asking for a job and having an agenda. He positioned himself for the job he wanted, not the jobs that he thought that they had. And so this is another area I see people fall down in, because they think, they'll either only go after conversations where they know that there are jobs posted, which we all know at this point, 70 to 75% of jobs are not even posted. So they will take themselves out of the running of what could be a really great person to know and a potential for creating a position. Or they'll try to squeeze themselves into a role that is often too junior. I see this a lot with career changers, as they assume they need to take a step back, which is just not the case, right? With few exceptions. I doubt my career coaching skills are totally translatable to becoming a surgeon, right? There are certain things that I have to learn before I can become a surgeon. But by and large, especially when we're talking about leadership, I think people psych themselves out because they put way too much emphasis on the subject matter, right? As opposed to the leadership things that they bring to the table automatically. And, subject matter can be learned. Even if you're really rock solid in a particular area, think about it. You have ramp up time in any single role. So go after the job you want. And so my client did that. And at the end of the first meeting, the person he was talking to was already talking about perhaps a position at a director level as this person's right hand. And I don't want to set your expectations that it happens that instantaneously and that every meeting you're going to go to is going to end up in that sort of result, but it does happen. It happens all of the time. Good leaders are always looking for talent. And so they always have their eye out for how we can fit this person in, whether or not they even know they needed this role filled, right? So I want you to keep that in mind. I want you to use my client's example for yourself. And I want you to go out there and build relationships. I'd love to hear your comments or questions, and feel free to share any of your own relationship building tips. All right, bye.